So, what really makes a life worth living? We're about to dive into a memoir that's incredibly personal, really powerful, and asks that exact question. This is a story about what it means to face the absolute darkest parts of yourself, just to find a little bit of light. And it all starts with this huge challenge, one the author puts right out there in the introduction. How in the world do you take a whole life, all the chaos, the beauty, the pain, and squeeze it into a book? Well, he's totally honest about it. You really can't. So just remember, what we're talking about today, it's really just a peek behind the curtain. The author makes it super clear that this book is a collection of moments that defined him, but they're just the foundation of a much, much bigger story. And as we're about to see, that foundation was built in some unbelievably tough times. All right, so the first part of this journey dives right into a childhood that was just marked by trauma. And the author doesn't pull any punches here, because you have to understand the pain to get the person he eventually became. Wow, I mean, this right here, it's one of the most chilling things he writes about his early years. His mother was convinced he had mental problems, so she had him on this nonstop cycle of medications. He says it basically wrapped his entire childhood in a thick fog, burying his creative, energetic spirit under this heavy blanket of chemicals. And that feeling of being trapped, it was physical too. After getting put into a special needs program, he was stuck in-school suspension. And listen to this, not for a week, for his entire school career in that town. Can you imagine? He was totally alone in a room with just a camera for company, watching all the other kids live a life he was completely locked out of. Now, this is where things get really deep, and it kind of reframes how you might think about self-harm. As a teenager, he was struggling with who he was inside this really hostile religious environment, and he turned to self-punishment. But he explains it wasn't about wanting to die. It was more like a desperate physical prayer to try and purify himself, to force himself to be what everyone else was telling him he had to be. But maybe the deepest cut of all wasn't even physical. It was this: the absolute betrayal of being beaten for telling the truth, of having the two people who were supposed to protect you, no matter what, just refuse to believe you. That's a kind of pain, he writes, that just echoes through your entire life. But here's the thing. This isn't just a story about pain. And this is the turning point. Right when things are at their darkest, out of all that powerlessness, something incredible happens. A moment where he takes his life back. A moment that would set the stage for everything else. And that brings us to the next chapter of his story. It's all built around one single amazing memory that pretty much became his playbook for survival. He calls it his blueprint for resilience. Okay, the story is just fantastic. As a young teen, he decided that for once, he wanted a birthday that was actually his. So he gets this crazy idea. He's going to rent the entire public pool. To pull it off, he sells everything he owns, old toys, books, you name it. And then when he's holding that wad of cash, just enough to make it happen, he has this life-changing thought. For the very first time, he was in control. He owned himself. And the power of that one night was just huge. It didn't even matter that only a few friends showed up to the party. In his mind, he was the king of the deep end. That memory became his proof, his evidence that if a traumatized, medicated kid could hustle his way to his own joy, then as an adult, he could get through absolutely anything. And that is the core of it all. That one lesson, that you can find your own power even when you feel like you have none, that becomes the driving force of his entire life. Which brings us to the final beautiful theme of the book. It's not just about surviving the pain, it's about what you do with it, how you actually transform it. The author calls this his season of hope. So, to really get what he's talking about, you have to understand this one word, alchemy. We're not talking about the old science of trying to turn lead into gold. We're talking about the idea of taking something common, something painful, and through some kind of magical process, turning it into something new and beautiful. And boom, there it is. This is his mission. He isn't just telling us about his trauma. He is actively, intentionally transforming it. He's taking the lead of his past and turning it into the gold of wisdom and art and strength. And, that's what's so incredible about this whole thing. The book that you're reading isn't just a story about his journey of healing, it's the final result of that journey. The very act of writing it all down, of shaping his own story, That is the ultimate act of taking back control. It's the ultimate alchemy. And so he doesn't end the book like it's a closed chapter. He ends it as a new beginning. It's proof that even after you feel like everything has been taken from you, you can still rebuild. You can start a new season. Which really just leaves us with this one final, powerful question. I mean, his journey is his own, of course, but the question he raises is for all of us. What if we could look at our own scars, not as things to be ashamed of, but as the very source of our deepest strength? Now, that is a life worth exploring.